Hi, this is the Chapter 3, Part 3, and I finally have a name for it. It's called The Relevance of Questions. And the reason that it becomes that is because I find that in this day and age, with this big influx of the internet and all the data and knowledge that's accumulated so quickly, science has really found a lot more answers very quickly, and it has helped. But what I look at sometimes are not just the answers. I look at the profound questions that seem to come up from a lot of these so-called answers they have. The science has been pretty impressive. It's basically designed these really elaborate, complicated tools. And the way that I look at it in kind of a cynical sense is that man and its intellect has been able to design the tools that are helping us to design how God designed creation. And so we're kind of falling pretty short, when we try to answer some of these questions. And the questions are just, in a way, beyond our intellect and beyond us. And that's what I find. And that's why it's pretty easy for me to reasonably say and rationally say that it's these things of I don't know why that really help me understand that God is the answer for these, and He's the creative genius behind all of these things that we find. I'll start out the questions with a really kind of complex, the beginning type question of what is the singularity? We basically spent a lot of time and put a lot of effort in trying to discover this Big Bang theory of the creation of the universe. And then we start out with it starts with a singularity, and we don't have any idea what that is. It's like the singularity has no mass, it has no light, it has, well, basically nothing, because no time, because through the Big Bang and the explosion of the singularity, all of these things started. There was no start to anything until the Big Bang exploded. And the idea that the size and the heat and the velocity of that Big Bang has to be just absolutely perfect for all of these things like matter to exist and light to come into being and galaxies and stars to form. So it's a pretty big question. It's a big question that scientists wonder, and wonder in the sense of we don't really know what that is or how that even occurred. And so that wondering is what I call the ability to know why, and to me that why is God. A scientist will be as vigorous about the idea of not believing that God is the cause of this as a Christian would, believing that God is the cause of this. And a scientist basically would say, I don't know why yet. And so they basically look to the future and hope for this future yet that they're going to find out the answers to all of these things. One of the more obsolete, or kind of shows my ignorance and my naivety as a pseudoscientist, basically, is that I kind of wonder what genetics is going to do to the theories of evolution. They claim that it's going to help, but there's some really crazy things. Like, I was reading about these bonobos or something that are like chimpanzee-like things that are basically maybe more related to human genetic code than the chimpanzees are. But then I look at these ideas of evolution that anthropologists are continually coming up with, and now the geneticists are coming up with. And I don't see too much in the way of what they call a genetic tree of life. I put together some of this, and I just ask a question, and this is one of the questions, is why isn't there a genetic tree of life? I look at the idea that 50% of our genes are the same as a banana. And then if you go up the ladder, and I'll jump way up the ladder, it goes into a dog as 84%, a mice as 90%, which might be why we use mice to do our experiments, to study human physiology a lot. And then a gorilla is 98%. So why is a gorilla higher up on this tree of life that we see than a chimpanzee is, which is 99%, the similarity to our genes. And when you study the genes a little bit closer and read some of the articles, you realize that 99% is not really close. We're just so different from chimpanzees, as you know, and our intellect is so superior to anything. And the little 1% that we're saying is different doesn't account for that. And it's partly because we're learning more and more about how genes work and what DNA is all about. The idea that we can discover things and we have done some great things is something that really needs to be applauded. I was really excited when the Large Hadron Collider found the so-called God particle, which is the Higgs boson. And it was interesting when you go back and try to look at this controversy with the Big Bang and steady state, that this cosmic microwave background radiation was found, which helped explain the Big Bang theory and the process of the Big Bang. And it's also starting to explain things possibly in gravitational waves or in dark matter, and who knows, maybe much more. So it's very interesting. Our science and our scientists have come pretty far with these things. But when I look at it from my own personal point of view, because I love astronomy, is I look at the Hubble telescope. Before the Hubble telescope, we were just a galaxy and we were it. The Milky Way was it. And now we're one of, I heard, up to 2 trillion galaxies, but I'm not sure if that's true. But we're just one of many, many galaxies now, and the sun is one of trillions and trillions of stars that exist, and the Earth is maybe one of trillions and trillions of planets that exist. What Hubble did is it opened up our vision, our ability to see in more detail, opened up our vision about what the universe really is. And I remember when I was born, many, many things were so different than they are today. Now, if we look at the way things are, it's so different from when I was born. If I look at now, I could ask some really interesting questions if I go to now. And these questions really kind of crazy. It's surprising that we don't know the answers to these, because I think people think we do, But we're not really sure what light is, and we're not really sure what gravity is, and we certainly don't have a really good key of what time is. We use it in all our equations. We have some physics or theoretical physics understanding of these, but it becomes pretty problematic. When I was first interested in this so-called string theory, I read some books on it, and this little ignorant and naive pseudoscientist really fell into place, because I really couldn't come very close at all to understanding it, but I kept plugging along. And pretty soon string theory became superstring theory, and that became M theory, or brain theory, and then M theory. I thought M theory meant membrane theory, but I heard it means mother of theories. And what that is that they're trying to use string theory to reconcile this big theory of everything, which will make gravity work on the micro scale of small atoms and things like that, and the macro scale of Einstein's cosmos. So it's really kind of interesting. But those questions really are problematic, and they basically really show me how we really don't know a lot, and we are evolving very quickly to try to learn as much as we can, but we're very far off. The whole idea of string theory and its so-called 11 dimensions, I wondered about the 11 dimensions, and it was explained to me this way. You don't know about them because they're too small to see. And they're basically mathematical equations from the so-called quantum mechanics that existed. I looked up quantum mechanics, tried to understand that, and again, I come pretty short of that kind of theoretical physics type thing. But quantum mechanics was basically created from this Heisenberg uncertainty principle. And that uncertainty principle kind of reflects, how the scientists are trying so hard to understand everything and understanding the idea that they don't understand things yet. When the Bible says that we're without excuse, what it means to me is that we basically don't know a lot, and we look to see a lot, and we find and see the wonders of God. But as we understand that we don't really know that much, we start to look at all of this basic knowledge that's being accumulated, and we know more and more. But that kind of draws us to God, because that kind of shows us that our human intellect is not even close to God's intellect, and our ability to understand creation is pretty far off in terms of how close we are to that. And so that is why it is important that we look at questions and try to understand God through our questions. Thank you.